Hi, my name is Faranisha Binti Abdul Halid.
Hi, my name is Nabihah Balqis binti Mama Animan.
Hi, my name is Nurul Izzah binti Sabaruddin.
Hi, my name is Shariena binti Rafiee.
Hi, my name is Shazwin binti Hamidon. South Africa is one of the most geographically varied countries of the African continent, comprising territory that range from the rolling, fertile plains of the eastern Transvaal to the Kalahari Desert and the peaks of Drakensberg Mountains. In addition, with its excellent road and rail system, its abundance of top-rated accommodation, and its bountiful farmland and vineyards, South Africa allows visitors ample opportunity for more luxurious comfort along with adventuresome excitement. Hey, do you know that South Africa is located, as one might expect, on the southern tip of Africa? It's bordered by the Atlantic Ocean on the west, the Indian Ocean on the south and east. South Africa's population of 40 million is 3/4 black, which is African, and about 50% white, which is European, with the remaining 10% comprised of people of mixed white, Malayan and black descent, and people of Asians, which is mostly East Indian descent. The African majority is composed of many different ethnic groups, the largest of which are Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, and Bapedi. Although there are 11 official languages spoken in South Africa, such as African, English, Zulu, Xhosa, Swazi, Ndebele, Sotho, Northern Sotho, Sa, Tswana, and Venda, English is widely spoken. The rand is the official currency of South Africa. 1 rand is equal to 0.24 Malaysian ringgit. The rand was introduced in South Africa in 1961 when the country became a republic. From that moment on and until 1982, the South African currency had a value higher than the dollar, but it started to decrease as a consequence of international pressure, along with the sanctions against the country provoked by the South African policy of the apartheid. Since that moment, the rand has suffered several fluctuations in the exchange rate according to political and economic movements occur in the country.
Hi, now I will explain about inflation and unemployment rate based on the graph over here. The annual inflation rate in South Africa edged down to 1.432 during 2015 from 2.294% in 2014. The highest inflation rate in the South Africa is in 2008. The rate during that year was 10.055%. The type of inflation during that year were running inflation because the percent is between 10% to 20% per annum.
Izzah, did you know there are few causes of inflation in South Africa?
I don't know about it.
It's okay, Izzah. I can explain it to you. Inflation comprises of two types, namely demand pull and cost push inflations. Demand pull inflation occurs when goods and services that are demanded in an economy are less than those are supplied in aggregate. Cost push inflation is further exacerbated by imported capital, which becomes expensive when currency is weak.
Oh, I see. For your information, in 2019, South Africa core inflation rate fell to the lowest in almost 8 years in September 2019. Growth in core consumer price, which excludes the cost of foods, non-alcoholic beverage, fuel and electricity, slowed to 4% last month, from a year earlier compared with 4.5% in August. It makes up about 16% of the inflation basket.
Now, I'm going to talk about the effect of inflation and unemployment. The effect of inflation first is the rising petrol price. Petrol prices in South Africa reached unprecedented high in July 2018, which has in turn had a knock-on effect on all consumer-based sector. The price of fuel has risen 25% compared to last year this time. Without this ballooning expense, inflation would have been limited to 4.3% last month. The last of the effect of inflation is hurt to poorest. In South Africa, the time of high food inflation, the poor experienced higher overall inflation than the average consumer, and that inflation of the poor's food basket increased more rapidly than that all of the group. The food inflation rate was 9.8% in March 2016. It was 13.6% for rural residents and 11.8% for the poorest household.
How to solve inflation in South Africa using fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is progressive and works to reduce inequality by taxing the income of the rich proportionally more than the poor and using social spending to boost the incomes of poorest more than tenfold. Fiscal policy narrows the income gap between the rich and the poor. Before taxes and social spending, the income of the richest 10% in South Africa is more than 1,000 times bigger than the poorest 10%. After taxes and social spending, this gap falls so that the income of the richest 10% becomes 66 times bigger than the poorest 10%. This corresponds to a reduction in the Gini coefficient on income from 0.77 before taxes and social spending to 0.59 after the impact of fiscal interventions. The report also demonstrates that South Africa is having more success than other peer countries such as Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Indonesia, and Ethiopia in using fiscal policy to tackle inequality and poverty. Despite the strides made by fiscal policy, because the income gap was so high to begin with, the level of inequality after fiscal policy is still much higher than it is in the most countries in the world. South African shoppers with limited spending money are turning to low-cost supermarket chains such as Shoprite Holdings for cheaper food and eschewing new clothes to counter accelerating inflation. Africa's biggest food retailer on Tuesday reported that 7.4% half-year sales growth at South Africa stores that have been open for more than a year, equal to how much the company raised prices in the period, that outperformed like-for-like food growth at higher-end department store chain Woolworth Holdings Ltd as shoppers stunned more expensive foodstuff in favor of cheaper options. For those selling fridge, furniture and clothes, it's an even bleaker picture.
Amazan ya indi tan en wachina de ayo ka de te chi pin thokala wachina de benan ke ayo tan napal ke bigdong pin ka ayo ka jarur koi loi na kwan ke ayo mezan ya de bi chwat la na chang ben da dor twen bi chen de ben mi te cham ka angi ka cha ka nga chwat.
Okay, so I'm going to explain to you about the unemployment rate in South Africa. The unemployment rate in South Africa edged down to 22.433% in 2008 from 26.66% in 2007. The highest unemployment rate is in 2002, which is 32.473%. The type of unemployment rate in South Africa is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment means people being in a process of moving from one job to another. The frictional unemployment in South Africa, because of educational level, have risen and participation rates typically increase with educational levels, and it makes them become harder to find their work. Next is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment resulting from industrial reorganization. It is due to technological change. In the South Africa, the economy was shifting to more skills-intensive sectors like retail and financial service, while agriculture and mining, which had historically offered opportunities for common laborers, were in decline.
The causes of unemployment is generally poor education level, thus a mismatch of too much unskilled labor and insufficient skilled labor. The unemployment rate in South Africa edged up to 29.1% in October 2019. In South Africa, unemployment rate last reached 28% in 2003. In September, the working age population increased by 0.4% in the third quarter compared to the second quarter of the same year. The number of employed persons increased by 16.4 million in the third quarter 2019. But the number of unemployed persons also increased by 6.7 million.
Effect of unemployment. In South Africa, crime rate rise at 14.5%. It is because of people are unable to meet their needs through work. A total of 16,717 cars were stolen between April 2016 and March 2017, up from 14,602 reported in the previous 12 months. The second one is the latest figures from Statistics South Africa show that 44.4% of divorce in 2016 were couples whose marriage lasted less than a decade. This is because people cannot solve their financial problem due to unemployment. Last is in 2018, the poverty rate in South Africa stands at 35.9%, up to 1.2% from the previous year.
So, I am going to explain on how the government of South Africa control unemployment in their country. The first thing that the government do is lower unemployment taxes to increase labor demand. For example, the government make a reduction in national insurance contribution. Next, way on how to solve unemployment rate in South Africa that the government do is stimulus demand from both the public and the private sector, meaning that the government keeping the aggregate demand high to drive the creation of new jobs. Last but not least, the government improve export competitiveness to provide an injection of demand into the circular flow of income.